Hollow Knight Silksong is finally real. It's a real game that you can play, and everyone's talking about it. However, quite a bit of the talking concerns the difficulty, and if I wanted to cover that thoroughly, I'd have to write some big video essay about frictional game design and narrative mechanics and subjectivity, and I'm just gonna talk about the music instead. So here are my top 10 Silksongs as of right now, because I've already rearranged this list a bunch of times and it was really hard narrowing it down to just 10 because they're all so damn good. Also, general spoiler warning for pretty much the whole game. You know how it goes. The fact that I've put the final boss of Act 2 as number 10 on this list speaks to the absolute scope of Silksong's musical prowess, but I gotta start somewhere. Most songs on this soundtrack are built to be looped or enter multiple phases, so they tend to clock in at under 2 minutes in length. But Grandmother Silk gets a 3-minute and 44-second epic. This boss theme pulls out all the traditional stops, recurring leitmotifs, including the main Silksong theme, massive strings, brass, bells, triumphant vocal choirs. It's an overwhelming union of all the game's instrumental ideas blended up into one bombastic piece. So if you haven't listened to this song on its own, independent of 1,000 attack sound effects and shaws, I highly recommend taking a closer listen and trying to pick out all the details. Honestly, same goes for every song on this soundtrack. Cogwork Dancers is a bit of a show-off. It's the theater kid of the Silksong soundtrack. It's a piece that incorporates itself into the mechanics of the fight and tells an entire story at the same time. This gorgeous track that sounds kinda like a waltz, but it's in 4/4, so I'm gonna need the music heads to tell me what you call that, becomes the core of this battle as the dancers signal their movement on the first beat of each measure and move on the third. The first phase starts out calmly as both dancers move together in unison. After winding back up, phase 2 brings more intensity as they move faster but still harmoniously. Phase 3 reaches a fever pitch as the instrumentation gets even more hectic while the dancers move on opposite beats, making their attacks harder to dodge. And then, when you finally destroy one of the dancers, you're met with depression. Without its partner, the remaining dancer is trivial to avoid as all instrumentation is substituted for a lone Celesta, concluding the fight and narrative by making you feel like you're the bad guy. These robots were just trying to groove together and you harshed their vibe. I hope you're happy. To no one's surprise, Cogwork Core makes its way onto the list. This one seems to be a standout for many fans, and it was also the answer from 2 of my friends when I asked for their favorite song. And for good reason. In a similar fashion to Cogwork Dancers, Cogwork Core sets itself apart from other regions by utilizing unique instrumentation that makes it feel like the song is being played by the machinery around you. The standout composition choice here is multiple layers of ticking clocks and gears that serve as percussion, which really emphasize the cold, metallic nature of the Citadel's heart while mirroring the systematic movements of enemies and stage hazards. Plus, in addition to the literal bells and ticking clocks, Cogwork Core implements some combination of Celesta, glockenspiel, kalimba, metallic type instruments to really solidify the aesthetic, topped off with plenty of reverb to give the area an imposing sense of scale. So much of Silksong is about music, in addition to it being 50% of the game's name. The world of Farloom is deeply entangled with song and how it intermingles with faith, control, and freedom. Thus, it's only fitting that there be an entire region dedicated to an instrument, the exhaust organ. The boss waiting for you at the end of this location is Phantom, a darkly mirrored version of Hornet who strikes the first chord on the organ itself before challenging you, making Phantom's theme one of the few somewhat diegetic songs in the game. This helps its sinister yet triumphant boom, ba, boom, ba, boom become that much more memorable as it echoes through the massive halls. Also, I just love evil organ sounds. The slab is one of my favorite segments in Silksong, in large part thanks to this track. After sneaking your way through a suffocating prison with all of your tools confiscated, the sequence reaches its climax as you drop onto a nearby guard who has stolen your needle and cloak, snap their neck, and reclaim your power. Dramatic strings climb and build until a very familiar melody takes center stage, as Red Maiden is a new arrangement of Hornet's boss theme from Hollow Knight, except this time, you're the boss. A huge reason why this song made it onto my list is thanks to its pairing with this nostalgic moment. But video game music is all about these moments. It's about pairing music with narrative and gameplay and visuals to paint immersive emotions, and wow. This sequence in the slab is what really solidified the feeling that I was playing as Hornet, and I think it also does a great job at honoring the sequel's connection to the original game while reaching for even greater heights. Like Hornet herself, Red Maiden is determined, it's confident, it's experienced. It's the anime protagonist moment we deserved and then some. If Dirtmouth was the home base of the original Hollow Knight, Bellheart seems to be Silksong's equivalent. I was always glad to find myself passing through Bellheart or revisiting it for quests and shop visits simply to hear this music. Fleeting moments of hope and serenity glimmer across this bittersweet piece as it seems to echo the wishes of its remaining residents. Piano was a key instrument for storytelling in Hollow Knight, but since Silksong places much of its narrative focus on strings, the piano becomes a slightly rarer treat, evoking a nostalgia for tracks like City of Tears and Dirtmouth. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's why Christopher Larkin used it for Bellheart. This is one of the few places of respite you'll find across Farloom, with a unique sense of life as you observe its inhabitants practice their crafts and help those in need. And how could I possibly forget Pavo, the lovely greeter? This song just isn't complete without his goofy jingling bell hat and la la la. If I'm being honest though, I think half of why Bellheart made its way so high up is because of that one violin harmony pretty late in the song. I'll just play it. The next song on my list is The Widow Fight in Bellheart, and my goodness, what a freaking banger! As is fitting for a Weaver, Widow's theme uses exclusively strings. The powerful staccato of the higher strings and main melodies is backed by a frantic chorus of lower violins and cellos playing chords at seemingly inhuman speeds, instilling a sense of panic and urgency that is unmatched across the entire soundtrack. And even though this isn't a final boss, it's literally in Act 1, I felt like if I didn't beat Widow fast enough, I was gonna die in real life. And just when you think things can't possibly feel more hectic, the song gets faster and moves a half step up for Phase 2. absolute cinema. Or orchestra, I guess. Widow's theme is also reused for the first Sinner fight, but it's such an amazing track that this isn't a bad thing at all. Considering the first Sinner was also a Weaver, I think it's a very intentional thematic choice that works perfectly with her multi-phase design. Our old friend the piano is back, and it's ready to break some hearts. This song, which plays in both Seth and Nihilith's boss fights, is one of the most poignant pieces on the entire soundtrack. Out of the 3 main hearts you can collect in pursuit of the Everbloom, this is the one that felt the most emotional to me. It's the final cry of the heart of the forest, a being who once sought to protect the many bugs across Shellwood. Seth, the Shrine Guardian, is one of the few bosses in the game that isn't immediately hostile, simply noting that any who wish to pass must cross their weapon with his own. Once you challenge him, this absolutely chilling piece begins with a dampened piano melody and quiet string accompaniment. Despite Seth being one of the harder fights in Silksong, this piece is so far removed from the frenzy and chaos that typically define a boss theme, yet that's precisely what makes it so memorable. As you continue to fight, and during the entirety of the fight with Nihilith, the song maintains a similar progression and melody while introducing more instruments, grand swells, and that classic vocal choir. But even in its most passionate moments, it never feels aggressive. Nihilith's theme is less of a battle and more of a swan song for Shellwood as you dive into the memory of its former glory to sacrifice its heart. And what a sick fucking concept. While not directly related to the song's composition, I also wanted to mention that Seth was created by a young man named Seth Goldman, who worked with Team Cherry to design the boss during his battle with cancer. Unfortunately, he passed away before the game's release, but he was able to see the boss's lore and fight design back in 2020. This entire sequence, and especially the music, feels like a lovely tribute to his memory. I just did a search across my script to see how many times I've used the word tragic so far, and surprisingly, it's 0. I saved them for this one. Bilewater is one of the most frustrating regions in Silksong on purpose. As the name implies, this is a locale destroyed by the Citadel's pollution, where its inhabitants slaughter pilgrims and hang their bodies for all to see, driven by pure hatred for the destruction of their home. And I mean, what better ways to convey that hatred to a player than maggot-infested swamps, hidden death traps, and a devilish arena runback? The cherry on top for Bilewater, though, is, you guessed it, the music. If you were to try to imagine the song that might play based on the lore of this region, you might expect something dark, sinister, and aggressive, but that's not the case for Bilewater. This song is delicate and tragic and pairs perfectly with the environmental storytelling hidden throughout the region. It masterfully tells the story of a land lost to pollution and hatred through a soft, dampened piano melody, gentle strings, and a sole female vocalist, with the driving force being one simple descending phrase. The entire piece is built around this one motif, repeating it, then altering it slightly by ascending and holding certain notes before looping the whole idea again on a much more resonant piano. I think this heavily repeated musical idea really helps drive home that sense of despair. This song isn't what Bilewater feels like to explore, but rather how its inhabitants feel when they remember how peaceful and clean their home used to be. Before I get to number 1, my honorable mentions go to Fleetopia for being one of the few beacons of joy in a largely melancholy soundtrack, Scarsinger Carmelita for the fact that she can sing and kick my ass at the same time, and Strive for pulling out all the stops on literally the first boss theme in the game. You made a song that goes this hard for Moss Mother? The tutorial boss? Oh, and Tormented Trobio. I really thought the purple emo performer run back with a choir chanting his name would be an easy winner, but this soundtrack is so unreal that I actually had to bump him out. Sorry, buddy. Number 1 isn't a boss theme, and it's not the main theme, but in my eyes, Choral Chambers is one of the defining tracks of Silksong. This isn't an obscure pick by any means, but my god, what an absolutely gorgeous track. I'm getting goosebumps listening to it again while I write this. As you fight your way across Farloom and through the underworks to finally emerge in the Citadel, you find that its majestic scale and splendor has come at the cost of extinction. A holy capital where pilgrims and the devout never find solace and instead must pay for the reprieve of a bench or an automated confession booth that tells them they must toil for eternity as their sins will never be forgiven. All of this and more is encapsulated perfectly in Choral Chambers, a piece that feels as if it's casting a spell upon those that still wander its halls. A haunting vocal choir alongside gentle strings and bells slowly builds into a beautiful orchestra, before a final crescendo of slow, synchronized swells echo the dying wishes of the Citadel's residents. I spent a lot of time here during my playthrough, but I never got tired of this song. I repeatedly found myself in awe every time I heard it, so much so that I'd often just stand still and take it in. And that's like the ultimate honor I can give to a video game song. Alright, those are my top 10 Silksongs as of right now, but my music theory knowledge is pretty limited, so I hope I did an okay job talking about these tracks, and I'd love to hear about your favorites in the comments. I'm really excited to learn more about this soundtrack as people analyze the lore and track down all the recurring leitmotifs, and I patiently await the inevitable Silksong music theory video essays. Thanks for watching, and you can subscribe if you want to. Bye!